yeah, if I could record what I was going to talk about, because I may not get around to recording myself. And this is something that I really want to do. I've just been, procrastinating. I was reading about the Anosognosic dilemma on the Opinionator and the opinion pages of the New York Times magazine. And anosognosia is basically a condition where you don't know that you're handicapped, but everybody else does. But like, in order to avoid picking up a pencil, which you don't have the ability to do because you're like paralyzed, you'll like come up with all kinds of reasons. Oh, I really need a pencil, or oh, that's my dog's job to pick up my pencil. If I don't give him something to do, then he feels bad or whateher. And at the same time, I also surfed on this article on PBS about if we erase our memories, do we erase ourselves? Because they've come up with an experimental, at least conceptual, new treatment that that you can erase traumatic memories. And somehow I was going to tie that in with the Anosognosic dilemma, that is the self your memories, or is it what other people see? Because if you go with the anosognosia, like how people, my self-perception may be completely off. So maybe my perception of a memory is completely wrong. And yet I hold a certain memory within me and it becomes vital because, oh yes, this happened as a child. But, what is the self? Are you the sum of your memories? Or are you the sum of your decisions? Or are you how other people perceive you to be? Or are you the person that you perceive yourself to be? The self is transient, and who I am today is not who I was yesterday. But what if I could remove a traumatic memory? Or what if things have happened to me that I didn't know is traumatic because I have anosognosia, and and there's something wrong, but you'll never know what it is. So do just the memories I perceive happened? Does just the reality that I perceive happen shape myself? Or does the reality that I don't perceive shape who I am? So if I go and decide that I want this memory erased, if maybe in 5 or 10 years I can go into a doctor and I can say, hey, this thing was traumatic to me. What if the doctor says, no, that's not traumatic to us? So there, and maybe the doctor says, hey, I think that this event in your childhood was way more traumatic and we need to remove this. But I'm like, no, that was not traumatic to me. But maybe, so then you get into the Anosognosic dilemma with memory shaping who you are, because a trivial memory or something that I may perceive as trivial, or totally forgot or don't even perceive as being part of my reality, somebody else may perceive as traumatic. The question with that any experimental treatment towards treating traumatic memories is not does erasing that traumatic memory erase myself, but how do you define the traumatic memory? And how do you define what is traumatic? How do you, if you're going to treat trauma and permanently alter one's memory of trauma, how you would have to first you would have to first define trauma, and it's such a subjective thing. I think that you can change the way that you remember things, and therefore you can change the past. Yeah, you can do it subconsciously or consciously, and your past depends on your frame of mind right now. Like, if I'm depressed, then my past is probably much more tragic than I perceive it to be whenever I'm not depressed. Whenever I'm having to deal with my mother, she's a much bigger bitch than whenever I can just relegate her to these pockets of memory and choose to remember only the nice things about her. So what is trauma? What is important? What is, you know, I think that erasing memories, you could very easily, if you had the ability to erase traumatic memories, you could very easily erase what somebody would later decide was not that traumatic after all, or what they were stronger for from going through it. And there's a lot of pride to be said from going through something traumatic and overcoming it and triumphing. So maybe the question isn't even if we erase our memories, do we erase ourselves? If we erase our memories, if we erase our traumatic memories, do we erase our triumphs? Do we erase the part of us, that complexity that is human and that's beautiful because we always try and do the right thing?